Everyone see my screen?
I can.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, then I think as it's a little after 11, I'm just going to get started. Welcome everybody. My name is Hannah Whitehead. I'm an extension educator here at UMass Amherst. And I'm excited to welcome you to our webinar today, all about cut flower collectives here in New England. So a little bit of a roadmap of the next hour. So I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction and a background about kind of how this webinar came to be, how this topic got on our radar screens at UMass. And then Haley Billip is going to talk about the Connecticut Flower Collective and a little bit about how they got started and how they operate. And then Sophia Oliver is going to talk about the Maine Flower Collective. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about efforts to start a flower collective here in Massachusetts. And then we'll have a little bit of time for question and answer. So before we get going, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can share them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. We'll mostly do questions at the end of the question and answer part, but I can see if any questions are very time sensitive, and feel free to enter them whenever you think of them, and we can just look at them at the end. I want to introduce Genevieve Higgins, who's on this Zoom as well, who's my colleague at UMass Extension, who's agreed to be our technical support today. And so if you have any technical questions, feel free to reach out to Genevieve. And I think she was going to put her phone number in the chat too, in case you get like kicked off the Zoom and can't get back on. And then this webinar is going to be recorded. So if you have anyone you want to share it with, or you want to review something again, I'll be sending out the recording sometime in the next week. So you'll have that with you. And then finally, when you close out the webinar at the end, you should get an evaluation that will pop up. It's very short. If you could fill that out, if you're able, that would be amazing. It helps us better tailor these workshops to what is most helpful for you. And it also helps us to report back on what we're doing to granting agencies so that we can get more money to do more webinars like this. So it's very useful all around. And that's pretty much it. So a little bit of a background about kind of how we came to think about this topic here at UMass Extension. Is a couple years ago, we started to work more. I'm on the vegetable team at UMass Extension. And we started to get a lot more questions about cut flower production from folks who grow cut flowers or grow cut flowers and vegetables. And we wrote a grant a couple of years ago to support cut flower growers more. So for the past couple of years, we've been out and about talking to flower growers. And I've been hearing a lot of questions about cut flower collectives and is there one in Massachusetts and other ways to sell flowers. And I haven't had many answers for them, but I've been able to point them. Well, I know there's one in Maine and there's one in Connecticut, but I don't really know much about them. So I'm really excited to hear from Sophia and Haley, and excited for them to be able to share with you more about how they operate. And then a couple of years ago, Maya Nyack of Tip Top Orchard in Buckland, Massachusetts, reached out to me to share some work that she and M. Thomas, another flower grower, have been doing to start a flower collective here in Massachusetts. And Maya, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it here at the last minute. She was going to speak, but I'm going to present on her behalf at the end to share a little bit about what's going on here in Massachusetts and how you can get involved. With that, I'm going to introduce Haley first. Let me get X out of here. So Haley is a flower farmer in Connecticut and the owner of the Connecticut Flower Collective. She has been farming since 2011, along with her husband and 2 children. Her favorite part of farming is the ability to change and adapt every season to keep things interesting. And her special skills include analytics, interpretation, and projection. Her favorite flower is Lysianthus.
I know, it's very daring to choose a favorite flower, isn't it? So I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everybody. I'm Haley. It says so on my little name tag, but I like to just mention that because I'm not great at technology stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I have a little slideshow that hopefully in a brief 20 minutes covers as much as you may want to know about the Connecticut Flower Collective. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Oh, geez. All right, I already have some technical difficulties, Hannah.
All right, is the sharing not working?
It just is making me go into my settings and everything. So
Oh no. Okay, why don't do you want me to share your slides and you can just
yeah,
let me
if you
know
wouldn't mind,
what to
I'll
advance?
just prompt you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Here we
Thanks.
go. Let me grab
Um,
here.
so
Oh wait, I'm on the wrong one. It's not, oh no, not this one. Wait. For
I
some
can
reason
talk
it's,
about Maine, but I won't have very
yeah.
detailed
One sec, let
information
me
for
X out of
everybody.
this. We're getting a preview. Okay. Share. Why is it? Oh, there we go. I think this is the one. And then here we are.
Hooray.
There we go. So just let me know when to advance the slide and I can do that for you.
Okay, amazing. So this is our beautiful new logo. You can advance to the next one, please, Hannah. Um, as everyone probably has figured out, there's really a lot that goes into creating a collective. And I just really want to emphasize that there's no one size fits all. And so much of how we've developed has been a journey and not a destination. And like a really important factor is working together with the growers that are in your area, making sure that you come up with a system that works as well as possible for as many people as possible, recognizing it's definitely not going to work perfectly for every single person involved, and to just really keep an open mind. You really have to be a seagull when it comes to collective operation. I'll just start out by telling you how we started. We technically began in 2019, but as I said, I've been farming since 2011 and pretty much right away reached out to a handful of other local flower farms. I think at the time, just finding them on Instagram, there might have been two or three other flower farmers that I knew of in Connecticut. I'm in Hartford, so it's like right in the center of the state. Um, so we would kind of get together yearly and think about like how we could expand our markets together. Nothing really started happening until about 2017 when I started driving a route to just like 7 or 8 buyers that I had started relationships with over the years. And in addition to offering them my own items from my farm, I would also offer them items from my friends' farms, and they would just come and either drop them off at my farm or I would pick them up on my route. And because it was only 7 or 8 buyers, it was lucrative for all of us, but not very hard to manage. But that developed into like a real collective with a real location and pickups instead of deliveries in 2019. We had probably about 8 growers. Maybe Meg or Jill, if you're on there and can look up the real stats and want to put it in the chat, feel free. But I believe we made about 80,000 in sales the first year. Um, We rented a space for $100 a week at what I would, what like I mean, people who driving by would call it like a dump. It's just a ratty, torn up greenhouse with a tiny little shed attached, and that's where we did our collective. Meaning we did once a week. We did that for 2 years at that location. Then in 21, we moved to a much larger space. In the kind of like a storage unit of a brewery. It wasn't a permanent space at all. So just on Wednesday mornings, we would go in and open the door and move aside all of their bags of grains and tables and things like that and set up our entire collective market and run the market and then pack everything up and leave. Usually the growers would stay and just take home any leftovers because we didn't have a cooler there and all receiving was done from 6 to 8 a.m. Um, Again, this all worked really well with lower sales numbers. We were probably still in the 1 or 200 thousands at that point. 2022 through 24, so 3 seasons, we moved to an old factory building in a town called Meriden. And that had actually, in addition to, like my slide says, being a former toilet lid hinge factory. which some lady told us when she came in one day, because she used to work there. um, that it for the previous 20 or 30 years had been the location for just a regular wholesaler, so they had a cooler there, which we took over and we ended up replacing the mechanics of, but the room was there, and that was a huge game changer for us. And because of that, we were able to be open 3 days a week. So we changed our system to receiving uh, on Tuesdays and then being open Wednesday through Friday, sometimes Saturday. And then last year, so spring of 2025, we moved to still a different location, Middletown, Connecticut. And that was due to the fact that we wanted a longer term lease. So, and then we built our own cooler there, which was grant funded and partially funded from our own income. And you can see some of the other stats that are in the notes that I put on the slide there. But I'll go over some more of that later on. So Hannah, could you please move to the next slide? All right, so in its current iteration, Connecticut Flower Collective, it's now been 6 seasons, offers 25 local farms products. We do delivery within 60 miles. It costs $35 and you have to spend at least $300. We do offer advanced pre-order. That's a question for a lot of people who are starting collectives, is if you should offer VIP treatment for anybody. We do have a couple of VIP folks. We're very reticent to offer it to anybody, but we also charge more for it. So we have a 10% handling fee that we attach to those transactions. That's basically us doing their shopping for them. We use Rooted Farmers, which I think, Sophia, you guys use Rooted as well for all of your transactions. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it is a software that was developed by a flower farmer in New Hampshire, specifically for flower collectives, and now they've moved into vegetable collectives as well. But it's kind of like a collective online sales platform, um, which the sales pages are individually run by each farmer, so they can control all of their products, but they're all visible on one shopping page for the buyer. It's free for buyers. For growers, we charge $400 a year. Membership fee to our members that covers their Rooted account fee, which I think is a few $100s depending um, on what level you get. All of our growers have Pro accounts, which just offers more in-depth analytics. So we offer pre-ordering for our buyers. And we also, like when they come and pick up their orders at our location, we have a big display for floor set up with all of the additional products that growers have brought in. And so people, in addition to being able to pre-order, can just go and grab things off the floor as well, just normal shopping. If they don't care for something that they've ordered, they can exchange it for something grown by the same grower on the floor. But basically, if you pre-order something as a buyer, you kind of have to take it unless there's some kind of mistake or it is bad. And on that note, quality check and subbing happens on Tuesdays at the discretion of the receiving team. Ideally, we nip all of that in the bud, as it were, before the buyer comes and picks up. But occasionally, their screen shows one color and it turns out it's a different color. So we do offer exchanges within the same grower. We can move on to the next slide. And just kind of the basic nitty gritty. Our weekly schedule is that farmers upload their product availability on Wednesday evening by 10 p.m. Pre-orders is open from Thursday through Sunday for buyers. So they have a pretty large pre-order window. Orders close on Sunday so farmers can harvest on Mondays, ideally. And then farmers bring their items into the collective on Tuesday between 10 and 3. And then wholesale only market day is Wednesday, 8 to 12. And then we're open for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday, 8 to 12, when anybody can shop. We do tend to have quite a few DIY folks coming in who want to buy bulk flowers for their weddings. So that those are the days that those folks can come in. We do not let those folks pre-order. So they just can come in and shop our floor, and they can't request anything beforehand or anything like that. We do have a system where we do like a shopping appointment, and they can make a note of what they are looking for, and we can let our growers know that. And that's kind of the extent of the hand holding that we do for those people. We can move to the next one, please. All right, so in 2025, our 6th year in business, technically, I think we had 28 growers, might have been 27. We grew, our sales grew by about 25% over last season. I think last season it was 815,000 or so by the end. We should be around 900,000 by the end of this year, and then we charge various fees that brings our total income to about 950,000. We charge 20% fee to the growers, which means that they have a gross sales number and they receive 80% of that monthly. I write monthly checks to all of the growers. There's a 6.5% fee to buyers. We call that a handling fee. We did that initially just because we didn't want the growers to take on 25 or 30% of the expenses. We thought that it was okay to share it with the buyers. That's worked out really well. We haven't received like any complaints about that. And it's really nice for the growers because we get more of our money. We do we have to pay Rooted a fee of 5% on all of the transactions, and then there's a Stripe fee of 2.75%. So Rooted actually takes around 7.75% of all the transactions run through the platform. And then they deposit in the collective account the remaining money, and then I use that money to pay the growers. So the growers don't have to worry about that 7.75%. That's absorbed into their 20% that goes to the collective. So a good portion of the commission income goes to paying Rooted. And then the rest of it covers the rest of our expenses. Like I said before, we have a $35 delivery fee. We have about 8 staff members, in addition to 3 to 5 drivers given the season. Staff members are like not full-time employees, but a couple are salaried and a couple more are paid hourly. Drivers are treated as contract laborers. Right now we have a 6-year lease at our location. We are a single member LLC. That's going to be a difference to the Maine collective. I believe they're a co-op, right, Sophia? So the reason that we do it the way that we do is because initially I was just kind of willing to take on the responsibility of handling the financial side of it. And I was not planning on actually running the collective myself. So it worked out in the way that decisions can be made relatively quickly. And since we aim to have no income at the end of the year, it's not necessarily a tax benefit for us to be a co-op. When you're a co-op, you have to have a board and you have to have a certain number of meetings every year, but you are in a different taxing scenario. probably depending on the state, but I'm not exactly sure. Um, in any case, we're a single member LLC of which I'm the sole member, but we really operate very much like a cooperative. Um, and all of our information, like all of our financial information, is shared with all of our grower members, although they're not technically cooperative members. So our largest expense is payroll, and our second largest expense is rent and utilities. That's pretty steady year over year. We can go to the next slide. So a lot of people who are growing a lot of flowers and would like to expand their wholesale sales wonder how much money you can make when you are a member of a collective. And the answer is depends on how much work you want to do and how much stuff you grow. But in 2025, our largest grossing seller made 115,000-ish, and our smallest made 6,500-ish. We try to have a pretty good spread of large farms, medium farms, and kind of specialty farms. And there are 5 or 6 farms that make over 60,000, and that's gross sales. So obviously the 20% comes off of that. So it's always good to keep that in mind. But if you're a grower considering joining a collective and you're thinking, wow, that's seems kind of expensive to sacrifice that income, consider how much you would be spending on marketing, sales, the employees to handle that kind of volume, et cetera. It's definitely worked well for me. I'm one of the larger growers in our collective. And I have access to over 200 buyers on a weekly basis, and I have no problem selling my pretty significant volumes of stuff. So I like it. Um, when we have people first starting out, we do a lot of coaching with them, and people always want to know how much they can make in the first year. I always say, well, how much do you produce? And we go from there, but we typically tell people to expect between 15 and 30,000 in their first year. And then after that, they can kind of figure out their systems. But we have a buyer or a grower who is in her second year and she's already in the $60,000 range. So you can definitely grow quite quickly. I think the stuff at the bottom here, I went over. The one thing that is really important to us because we don't want to hold on to a lot of income. We try to retain what we need to survive the winter, i.e., what we need for our rent and our utilities and our salaried payroll. And then we redistribute the remainder to the growers based on their percentage of sales, kind of like your REI redistribution at the end of the year. So people like that because they pay the $400 at the beginning of the year, but oftentimes, I would say almost invariably, they receive at least that back at the end of the year and sometimes a couple thousand. We also try to give our employees bonuses of some sort at the end of the year as well. And then we do occasionally make investments. I wouldn't say capital investments because we try not to have any assets. Because if I ever did not want to be the single member owner, then I don't want to have lots of expensive things to sell to somebody who would want to take this over from me. But we'll make investments like shelving and furniture type stuff. We can move on to the next slide. And how am I doing on time? Do I have 5 more minutes or
I
is
think
it?
you're good. Yeah, you're getting close to the end, but a
Okay.
couple more minutes is great. Yeah.
I think I'm near the end of my slides. All right. So for those of you who are interested in being in collective leadership, so it's relatively thankless, I have to say. Um, Not because you don't feel good about yourself, because you do, but it's a lot more work than anybody else who is in the collective is going to even be able to recognize, just because a lot of that work is hidden. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you are a person who does your best when people are patting you on the back and praising you and saying, you're doing amazing, keep going, you may not get that in this line of work. Um, if you're a full-time farmer, please do not attempt to be the manager of your collective. One of the best things that we did initially when we started the collective was to hire a manager. She was one of our buyers and a floral designer who lived very close to the location and is just a very organized person. She was the manager, I think, for the first 2 years. And then we took on assistant manager, and then that person, Jill, who is here somewhere, hi Jill, um, has been the manager since then. And she is a woman who has worked for me at my farm, but does not have a farm of her own and isn't a grower member of the collective. I do think that a certain level of distance from being a producer for the collective is really, really helpful in the day-to-day management. Um, I definitely still have a good amount of day-to-day tasks, but certainly not more than I can handle. It's been really important to me to compartmentalize that work because it's hard enough being a farmer. Do you enjoy herding cats? It's lovely being a leader of many, many leaders. All of these people, usually women, are strong, independent ladies who started their own businesses. So it's just something to keep in mind that, there are a lot of opinions involved usually when you're in collective leadership, and you're going to hear them from people. So just, being a person who can kind of float along on the waves is really helpful. Um, Management skills, not just management of your employees, which hopefully you have some of as a collective leader, but managing the participation and emotion of the other growers as well. Particularly delegating, it's just simply not possible for one person to take care of everything that's involved in managing a collective. Um, some of these are just kind of silly. Are you easily stressed by the bizarre requests of your wholesale clients? You know what I'm talking about. Having some experience in wedding floral design is really, really helpful if you do want to be in leadership. I would say event floral design. It doesn't necessarily have to be weddings, but if you haven't worked with wholesale clients before and you are thinking of joining this, almost all of your clients are going to be wedding event planners and florists. And so you having some experience in that world is extremely helpful. Hence, knowing what the color mauve is, or like what the difference between burgundy and wine is, which I think there isn't one. And um, who various designers are, and then like the are there still wasps in that nest is like somebody brought in a wasp nest to sell as a grower at the collective recently. So there's just like some things that come up when you work with a large group of people and sell to people who you know, are themselves working with demanding clients. You're going to run into some weird stuff, and having a little bit of background knowledge about what some of those might be is super helpful. We can move to the next one, I think, which is, oh yes, it's the last one. So hopefully I'm right on time here. So some of the secrets to CTFC's success. Remembering that it's just flowers. I used to do wedding floral design, and I would come home and I'd be like, oh my God, it's so stressful. Like the caterers hadn't even put the tablecloths on the tables yet. And so we had to do it. And And we finally got the centerpieces done right when they were finishing the ceremony, and we were all sweating and running around and blah, blah, blah. Anything like that. And then my husband would look at me and he'd go, "Oh, so did they still get married?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. Okay. They did still get married." So just remembering that, like, our job, while we take it seriously, is also not like life and death. We are not performing surgery here. Um, is just a great mindset to approach the difficulties of running or participating in a collective, or simply selling wholesale flowers, if that's just what you're exploring here today as well. So something to keep in mind. We have really grown and gained clientele based on our really, really great customer service. And I can really thank my team members, Jill, Meg, and Catherine, and Izzy, and Taylor, and all of the people who work for us. Just providing really great service, listening to complaints that people have, and trying to find a solution. Um, Consistency across producers. We do as much as we can. We do training and attempt to have consistent products across all of our producers. It's very, very hard. We have 25 people, but we have a standard price sheet. We have standard descriptions. We do a training at the beginning of every year for new growers. We do a longer training. It's pretty involved. We also have encouraged all of our growers to grow more stuff because every year we do feedback from our buyers and we try to figure out what they need more of, um, and then try to produce that so that, for example, instead of people panicking that they need 200 white dahlias, we'll actually have 200 white dahlias for the 10 or 15 different buyers who need them on a weekly basis. And that makes people come to us first instead of second, which in almost every case, people have, they're like, "Oh, I buy all of my stuff from Delaware Valley and have it delivered, and then you guys are the icing on the cake." And I don't want to be the icing on their cake. I want to be the first producer that they come to for their, for the bulk of their wedding order. So we've built that up over the years. And then also just being really, I don't want to say like strict exactly, but being very organized with procedures, systems, and dealing with any kind of digression from the protocols on the part of the buyers or growers is really important. And having just an answer for people when there is an exception to the rule, because the more exceptions you make, the harder you're going to end up working. And so we have tried to be very, very consistent with that over the years. And with that, I'll wrap up. Look forward to your questions later.
Awesome, thank you. That's great. Well, I will introduce Sophia and then we'll do questions at the end. So Sophia Oliver joined the Maine Flower Collective as their operations manager in August of 2023 during their inaugural season and has been working with the collective ever since. She's found ways to combine her previous experience working in a nursery, on a flower farm, in marketing for nonprofits, and in logistics management for a coastal restoration company to manage local flower sales, connecting local growers and buyers across the state of Maine. So Sophia, why don't you try and share your screen? And if you are having trouble, I can share your slides from my screen.
Sounds good. Let me see. Okay. Is that working? Oh, it says loading. There we go.
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay. So I'll start out just going over some of the things we'll talk about, which is our background and the timeline of how we were founded, some projects that we've implemented since we started the collective, and then our organizational structure, some of the benefits for flower farmers, considering joining the collective, and then just jump into how our collective works, our logistics, and then some info about our buyers and the Rooted Farmers platform, which the Connecticut collective also uses. And then some about our in-person wholesale market and the quality standards that we've put together, and some of the grower costs and feedback we've gotten from surveys, and then some sales data. So just starting out, what is the Maine Flower Collective? It's a member-owned cooperative that provides flower growers and wholesale buyers across the state with a more centralized system and product delivery. So the mission was put together by some of our founding members, which is just a great way to start the conversation and think about what it is you're trying to create and provide to people. And they came up with to connect Maine cut flower growers, florists, and designers through an online marketplace and build a community of abundance to strengthen all of our businesses, and to do it in ways that are mindful of our impact on our wider environment and world. So again, with that, I think in discussing the mission, they came up with some of the pillars of what our ethos and beliefs are, which are quality, collaboration, and inclusivity. So believing that improving Maine's local flower trade will reduce our carbon footprint by importing fewer flowers into our state through aggregated logistics and deliveries. So this is one of the main goals, to help reduce the carbon footprint of the collective and also individual businesses that are participating. So whether that's selling through the collective or purchasing local flowers. We believe it should be convenient to sell and purchase local flowers. So streamlining this is going to increase the efficiency of the businesses involved. And then our community and local economy benefits from growers reaching a larger network of buyers and vice versa. And also building community and accomplishing more by working together. And as always, the flowers should be extremely fresh and high quality. So setting those high standards for the blooms and products that are being sold through the collective. So a bit about our timeline and how we were established. So in 2021, we were awarded a specialty crop block grant through USDA, which helped get the collective off the ground. And we worked very closely with the Cooperative Development Institute, which is a local business that works with cooperatives to help them get established. This was to explore entity options, write our bylaws, and begin the financial planning. So it took a few years to really get the collective up and running as we took the first steps, and then COVID hit, so that slowed things down a bit. But in 2022, MFC was formed as a multi-stakeholder cooperative, and that's when we established our board of directors and opened applications to annual users for our first season, which was in 2023. And that is when we hired our operations manager and first delivery drivers for our first season. We signed our lease for our central hub location in Brunswick and launched that first season in April. And then in 2024, we were awarded another specialty crop block grant through USDA to help us launch our in-person wholesale market. So for the first season, we were only doing pre-orders and pickups and deliveries. And then in 2024, May of that year, we launched our in-person wholesale market at the hub, and hired a market floor manager to work with us on that. And we've been continuing with the market and our weekly pre-orders ever since then. So some about our organizational structure. As I stated, we're a multi-stakeholder cooperative. So we have 2 different participant classes, which includes member owners and annual users. So both of these groups can include buyers and growers. So for our member owners, this is a part owner of the co-op, and they pay a one-time equity investment of $750, and that gives them partial ownership of the collective. Along with that, they gain voting rights and decision-making power. They have board eligibility and profit sharing potential. And the nice perk for our buyer member owners is that they get early ordering access by just a few hours. And we'll go through that in a few slides. For our annual users, so there's just an annual fee to participate, and that differs between growers and buyers, and that gives them access to the collective services on an annual basis. So annual users do not have voting rights or decision-making power, and they are not eligible to serve on the board until they apply and join as a member owner. So this is just a map to give a bit of a visual of the area that we service. So it's color coded. The green are only growers that sell through us. The blue dots participate as both, so they are growers and buyers. And the pink dots are all annual user buyers. So quite a big spread there. Some of the benefits that we have identified for flower farmers that are considering joining the collective, it definitely broadens your reach. We've gotten a lot of feedback from growers that have talked about how many more wholesale customers they have gained each season by selling through the collective, especially to areas that are farther from them that they would not be able to service or deliver to. So this gives them an access to an engaged statewide network of buyers, and they're able to use the Rooted Farmers platform, which is our online ordering system. So it's just a much more efficient way to distribute to buyers. And then it also streamlines their sales. We share delivery and staffing expenses with the growers, and it expands their sales through the in-person wholesale market as well. And they're able to spend more time focusing on farming, growing flowers, while we streamline marketing, communications, invoicing, delivery, all of those things. And then it also allows you to be part of a community. So you have access to collective purchasing power. So we purchase all of the buckets that are needed every season, which I'll go through a little bit of that when we run through the logistics. It just makes it a lot easier for us instead of having to trade out product from growers' buckets into ours. We just have them place a deposit on how many buckets they need, and we swap out with them every week. It reduces your carbon footprint by supporting a more efficient delivery route. And then we also have some seasonal gatherings. So it's a really great way for people to connect, share resources, and have some more collaborative opportunities to meet each other and possibly do projects together. So how does the collective work? So our growers upload their weekly availability lists on Rooted Farmers each week on Tuesdays. Buyers can shop all of our growers' products. They can sort by color or variety, and they can purchase flowers from multiple farms on one order and one platform. And then all of the pre-ordered product and in-person market products are picked up by our vans each week or dropped off at our hub by growers. And then we sort all of the orders, and they're either picked up or delivered to buyers. So we'll go through that in a bit more detail. So I split this up into 2 weeks, but this cycle does happen it starts over every week. So for the first week, Mondays is when we ask that our growers have their availability listed for fulfillment the following week. But we typically have growers updating their availability up until right before the ordering window opens on Tuesdays. So, like I mentioned in the previous slide, our member owner buyers get early access to ordering. So when it opens on Tuesdays at 12 p.m., that's the group that's getting access. And then at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays, we open our ordering to all of our buyers. So they have a 4-hour window to place their orders before it opens to all of our annual users. And then on Sundays at 12 p.m. is when our window closes for pre-orders for the coming week. And then week 2, so Mondays is when I go through all of our orders and put together our pickup and delivery routes for the week. Tuesdays, we have grower drop-off hours at the hub from 8 to 3 p.m. And then between 7 and roughly 2 p.m. is when our vans are running the northern and southern pickup routes, where our growers meet at designated points and times each week to drop off their product to our vans. And then Wednesdays, 7 to 7:30, we also offer the option of growers being able to drop off product at the hub before our in-person market opens for the day. And then our northern and southern delivery routes deliver orders directly to our buyers most of the day on Wednesday. And we also have buyer pickup hours at the hub and the in-person market when it opens in May from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesdays. And then Thursdays, it's similar. We do the bulk of our deliveries every week on Wednesdays. Most buyers want their product as early as possible in the week to begin designing for weekend events. And then Thursdays, we sometimes have deliveries, and we have our in-person market and pickup hours at the hub from 8 to 12. So these are the pickup points that we have for growers to meet our vans. The northern route goes to Ellsworth, Brewer, Newport, and Fairfield. So they're all like very easily accessible locations along the highway, which helps us have a more efficient route. And then our southern route stops in Kennebunk, Buxton, Falmouth, Windsor, and West Gardiner. So for grower drop-offs at the pickup point, we basically start our routes by prioritizing the furthest stop away from the hub first and work our way back to Brunswick for each van. The place and time could change week to week, but it doesn't happen very often. It just depends on which growers made sales. We're not going to send our van to a stop to pick up product if no growers that normally meet at that location have product that week. But it's usually fairly consistent. So pickup points are, again, just chosen for convenience and ease. And then we require all of our growers to tag their bunches in their buckets before meeting the van. And if they want to drop off at the hub, that's always an option. And we have our hours listed there, and that's for pre-ordered product or market floor product. We always communicate to growers that if they have a lot of pre-ordered product, they should be dropping off on Tuesdays, which allows us the time to sort through all the orders and do quality checks. But if they're bringing product for the market floor, they're welcome to bring it Wednesday morning before the market opens. So this info is a little bit dated, but it was pulled from last year's application survey that we have buyers fill out when they're applying to join. But it gives a good idea of kind of what their buyers' weekly floral budget is. We have quite a mix of buyers, some that have brick and mortar florist shops. Most of them, I would say, are wedding and event designers. but quite a few that have weekly orders for different shops and retail spaces. So it's a good mix. But again, buyers who are member owners have early access to our availability, opening at 12 on Tuesdays, and then it opens to all of our buyers at 4, closes at noon on Sunday, and they can purchase from any and all growers within the collective. So one order could have bunches from several different growers. This is just a map of our delivery zones. So we have buyers that have the choice to pick up from the hub or receive delivery. Pick up from the hub is just during our in-person market hours, which are Wednesdays from 9 to 3 and Thursdays from 8 to 12. And deliveries take place on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So buyers have the choice to select Wednesday or Thursday for their deliveries. Our vans typically leave the hub between 7 and 8 and prioritize buyers who are closest to the hub and work our way out. So we have a $200 order minimum for delivery, and depending on the different zones that you see in the map here, it's a $30, $40, or $50 delivery zone, depending on their distance from our hub. So I know Haley spoke a bit about this, but we use the Rooted Farmers platform as well. It's really great. They've developed it to be a really niche, like flower sales platform. There's a lot of really great analytics that you can gain from looking at the sales data as well. And it's just really easy for us to use on the back end when updating orders or making any changes. But growers can create listings for the products they want to sell through the collective, whether it's cut flowers, bulk flowers, bouquets, dried flowers, or wreaths. And then for our collective, each grower individually sets their own pricing and chooses from the Rooted Farmers. They have some preset parameters. So you choose the color category, the stem length, and the quantity of stems per bunch. And then buyers can make purchases from all growers within the collective, and orders can be easily updated by us, which is nice. So a little bit about our in-person wholesale market that we launched last year. Again, those are the hours, and growers can deliver product to the hub Tuesdays during our pre-order drop-off window, or Wednesdays before 8, and Thursdays before 7:30 if they want to sell during the Thursday market hours. And we basically just have growers contribute product to the market floor by either delivering it to the hub or to the pickup points on Tuesdays when we're moving most of our pre-ordered product. We just communicate to them depending on the week. Our van space that's available might be limited based on that pre-order volume. So if we are not going to have extra space for market floor product, they're welcome to bring it to the hub. And we just have them communicate how much extra product they're planning to send with their pre-ordered product if they are sending market floor items. So our in-person wholesale market, the sales or the percentage that growers receive is the same that they receive for our pre-ordered sales. So it's 75%. We take 25% of growers' sales. So it's slightly different than the Connecticut collective, but those costs are also including the Rooted Farmers fee, stripe fees. So for labeling for the market floor, we always ask our growers to just have them banded in bunches of 5 or 10 stems. They have to have an existing listing for each product they send to the market floor with updated pricing, since that's where we're pulling those items from to add them to market orders. And the bunches just have to be individually labeled. So we assign grower codes at the beginning of each season. It's either a 3 or 4 letter code. that's reflective of your farm name. So that just gets tagged onto each bunch, and then they're welcome to include the price and variety name, but it's not required. Sometimes buyers appreciate having the price on the wrap when shopping. For any unsold market floor product, we communicate to growers that they can pick that product up at the end of our market hours on Thursday, or if they're not able to pick it up, then it essentially becomes property of the collective, and we either compost it, dry it, or most of the times we donate it. We have a few really great donation outlets in Brunswick that come and pick up from our hub each week and take them to their organizations. And so it's going back out in the community, which is really great. And a lot of growers feel better about knowing that it's going to a good cause if it doesn't sell. So a little bit about our quality standards. This guide was developed to just maintain consistency of the product that's being sold through the collective across the board. So we specify the recommended stems per bunch, stem length and flower size, harvest stage information, and then also any special handling considerations. And this document is just a spreadsheet that keeps growing every year. But we share this with all of our growers at the beginning of the season and really encourage them to go through it, highlight or edit the spreadsheet to minimize what they're looking at and focus on varieties that they plan on growing, so that they have a really good just standard to go back to and make sure that what they're selling through the collective is meeting what our buyers and the collective is expecting. Yeah, I mean, if product received doesn't meet these standards, it's typically up to me to address it with the grower directly. We love a good uncomfortable conversation, but everything needs to be high quality for us to continue doing what we're trying to do. And then some of the grower costs associated with our collective. So our current annual user fee for growers is $200, and then they also have to pay for the Rooted Farmers account, which we do have a collective discount code that Rooted offers to us to give to our growers, which is $100 off of their account. I know there are a few different tier options depending on what types of analytics you want to be able to access. So the price can change depending on which account they choose. And then we take 25% of each transaction. So the breakdown below shows what those go to, but similar to what Haley was expressing, our biggest expense is payroll, rent, insurance. We did purchase a van at the beginning of this season, which has been really great for us, and we're not spending as much on renting another vehicle for the season. But yeah, there are a lot of things that go into this: supplies, gas, etc. For us to be able to offer the pickup option from growers who are meeting our vans to drop off their buckets and their product, we were able to get that grant when we first started out, which did help cover a lot of the transportation costs. And we wanted to be as inclusive as possible and really cover a wide area. Maine is mostly rural, so we have a lot of smaller to medium-sized growers that are farther away from any urban areas, and we wanted to be able to include them. So this year we implemented a $12 pickup fee when utilizing our van to transport product back to the hub. So that's taken out of their grower payouts, which we issue checks for each week.
Actually, so
So
can I
this
can I
is
interrupt? really quickly. I just want to let people know we've reached 12, but
Oh,
but we're going to record this. So if no,
okay.
you're totally great. It's just everything always takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But we're recording this. So if you have to leave, I will be sending the recording out and you can catch the end of this. And I think we're actually pretty close because I think Sophia
Yeah.
is going to wrap up soon and then I'm going to speak for a short amount of time. So there's not too much left, but if you have to leave, you can watch it again later. All right, so keep going.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know I wasn't keeping an eye on the time. This is just some grower survey feedback that we got from this year. So it kind of shows the different percentages of what growers have reported their increase in sales has been since selling through the collective. And then this is similar related to how many new wholesale customers they have gained since joining the collective this year. And then this is just some of our quick overview of our sales data from 2023 to 2024 and to this year. So it shows the changes in stems sold, how many orders were placed, and then some year-over-year percentage calculations for those changes between each year. So we've been seeing growth every year. It's been very encouraging. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. And we'll do all the question and answers at the end. I'm just going to present now just a couple of minutes about some of the efforts that have been going on to create a cut flower collective here in Massachusetts. So I'm going to share my screen. It'll be about 5 minutes, and then we'll do some question and answer. There we go. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning, maybe it was the beginning of last summer, I was approached by Maya Nyack, who runs Tip Top Orchard, which is a flower farm in Buckland, Massachusetts. And M. Thomas, so she's been working with, M. Thomas, who also has a flower farm, Little Ben Farm in Montague, Massachusetts. And she reached out to kind of share some of the work that they had been doing to start a cut flower collective here in Massachusetts. So I'm just going to kind of share a little bit of what she shared with me so that you all have a sense of what's going on and you can reach out to them if you're interested in getting involved. So in 2023, Maya and M started talking about how great it would be to have a flower collective in Massachusetts, and how it seemed like a lot of other growers were really interested in it, but nothing seemed to be happening, and they figured, why can't they be the ones to get it going? And so they identified a group of farms who were interested in getting involved with an initial collective, and they also reached out to CISA, the Farm Support Agency in Western Massachusetts, to get some funding and some help conducting background research on flower collectives in 2023 and 2024. And that's a lot of what I'm going to share with you over the next couple of minutes here. First, I also wanted to share their mission statement. So they say, we are a group of flower farmers in Massachusetts hoping to form a growers collective. It is our goal to create a sales platform that will connect growers with designers, improve access to local flowers, and build security for small cut flower farms in Massachusetts. This distribution network will function as an aggregation point for farms statewide and serve designers through an online ordering form that makes acquiring our product simple and easy. So Maya and M started by surveying flower farmers and florists about their needs. They found that flower growers in Massachusetts were very interested in a collective, including some well-established flower farms, and they started assembling a list of interested flower growers. And so if you are interested, they're happy to hear from you, and you can reach out to them with the contact info I have at the end of these slides. And then they also found that florists were very interested, but that quality control was a concern that they had. And so they felt like it was important that the founding members needed at least a couple of years experience already selling to florists. And so mostly working with experienced growers, but potentially opening it up to more education for newer growers down the road. They also explored some logistical considerations. So I think Sophia and Haley touched on a little bit the difference between the LLC model and the co-op model. There are a lot of pros and cons to both, which they can speak a lot more about than I can. But I know that Maya and Em we're debating them, and that the LLC model, according to their research, seemed to be a little bit easier to get off the ground and more nimble to run. They liked the idea of the co-op model, but it seemed more complicated to get started. So they thought that perhaps it would make the most sense to start with an LLC and transition to a co-op model later. The central sort of logistical problem they had, which I think is perhaps most similar to Maine, is that most of the money and buyers are in Eastern Massachusetts and Greater Boston. Most of the farms are in the western part of the state. And so they started to realize how much upfront time and money it would take to kind of move products from west to east, vans and coolers and various things that Haley and Sophia have also mentioned through their presentations. They did apply for a couple of grants that they didn't receive and are keeping an eye out for more ways to get that upfront funding. And they initially had been thinking about starting statewide, but are starting to wonder if that's maybe too expensive and logistically complex, especially thinking about all these startup costs, and are starting to think more about supporting regional mini collectives that could build up to a statewide collective. So where are they now, a couple years in? And they're keeping an eye out for more sources of funding and are thinking about maybe trying to work with growers who want to start something on a smaller scale that they could build up to a larger scale. And they just wanted to emphasize that their hope is that these marketing aggregates are controlled by and-profit farmers. And so if you're interested in getting in touch, they're very excited to connect with growers who want to get involved. They're especially interested in hearing from growers who have a couple of years experience already selling to florists. And they're also interested in hearing from folks who are eager to set up something on a local or regional scale that could eventually build to a statewide model. And they're excited to share the information that they've already found. So I have their email here. I can also put it in the chat. And yeah, like I said before, Maya was going to join us today and she wasn't able to join at the last moment, but yeah, they're both excited to hear from you. So that's it. So now we can open it up to question and answer for all of us. And I'm going to share Maya and Em's contact info in the chat here. 1 second. All right. Are there any questions for Haley, Sophia, or me? All right. Let's see. We've got a question from Heidi. Heidi, is this question for Haley or Sophia or for me? She asked, do you have growers that sell individually and through the collective?
Yeah, it's for Haley because I'm from Connecticut. Thank you so much. So good to put a name and a face together. So I'm so far closer to Massachusetts. I'm in Litchfield County. So I'm just wondering if that's appropriate to sell from your own farm and via a collective. So I guess both can answer.
Yeah, I'll just say what our policy is on that, which is that we don't have any restrictions on growers to be able to sell to whoever they please, including clients of the collective. We encourage people to make all of their wholesale sales through us because we think it's easier, but we're not trying to control anyone's sales outlets. And that's worked relatively well over the years for us.
Awesome.
Great, thank you.
All right, another question. This one is from Megan Blake. What was the hardest lesson learned when starting a collective? And I don't know, maybe you can each take a moment to answer that one. The hardest lesson learned when starting a collective.
Meg is the assistant manager of the Connecticut Flower Collective, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
So, Meg, I will answer you my opinion about that, which is that I couldn't pinpoint exactly what the hardest lesson is, but I think one thing that has consistently made itself known to me is how long these things take to come together and how magical it is when everybody works together. That it really, really is not an individual endeavor, it's a group endeavor. And so making sure that you're structured initially to be conducive to group work is extremely important and maybe hard to remember sometimes.
I've been thinking about it for us. I think initially with the grant funding that we were able to secure for our first season and the goal of just being as inclusive as possible from the get-go was really great. Just trying to lift as many boats as possible. But I think it's also super important to think about like long-term sustainability. And we've had some kind of logistical constraints around the services that we've offered in the first few years. It's we've been able to make it work and it's been really great with the growth that we've seen, but I think it's really important to pinpoint like the goals at the beginning when you're first getting established and how you're going to make that sustainable for years to come. Um, so just thinking about things that you're going to offer because it's much more difficult to take certain things away from people once they've gotten used to a certain way of operating, especially with like your weekly fulfillment schedules, what the logistics are going to look like. We've had to make some tweaks across the last few years, but and luckily most people have been very open and receiving of those changes and understanding why we've been making those based off of feedback or just sustainability for our co-op. But yeah, just thinking about the basis of how you're going to operate and how that's going to work, not just for the first season, but for years down the road.
So thanks. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask two more questions here, and then we'll close this out. So someone asks, Haley, you mentioned hiring someone at the beginning who is not a farmer. Did you use funds from the grant to pay this person?
So, great question. No, we initially did not have a grant. We just asked every grower, I think, to contribute. I don't even remember how much it was, a few $100s. And then we just started collecting fees and making sales, and that's how we paid that person. Our other expenses were extremely low, so that was our highest expense. But yeah, we did not start with a grant.
Cool. Thanks. Another question, someone asks why you chose to go through Rooted versus like your own website. I think this might be a question for both of you. They're saying that 7.5% plus annual fees seems like a lot.
Yeah, everyone says that. I agree with you, but at the same time, the volumes that we're dealing with, it's like almost $1 million in sales, and we absolutely couldn't do it without Rooted. There are other sales platforms out there. Some people had used Shopify, I think, over the years. Rooted is specifically made for collectives, and we've worked closely with them since they were invented. So we're pretty committed to them, and they are very receptive to our needs. And before we started, I think the first 2 years or maybe 1 year, we just used basically a spreadsheet for orders. And I have this vivid memory of our manager at the time, Kate, just like crying at receiving because the list got so big and then it crashed and we lost all of the information. Um, and this was only with like $80,000 worth of sales. It was too much information for one spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, we love using Rooted for the same reasons. It was created with collectives or hubs in mind, but growers can also manage their direct sales to other buyers on Rooted using the same account. So I know a lot of our growers love using Rooted for that reason too. So they can manage all of their wholesale orders in one place, which is great. But yeah, I mean, the analytics and ability for us to manage all of that data is really unmatched. I know there are a bunch of other platforms out there for hubs and collectives, but I think most of them are focused around food and other agricultural products, which Rooted has now expanded into. So, yeah, again, to echo Haley, they're really receptive to our feedback and needs and are always looking to improve the platform. So it's really just amazing analytics too. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you both. Actually, one final question, just because it's a short one that seems very relevant, is someone is asking whether either of you work with farmers out of state or if it's specifically just for your state.
We work with farmers out of state sometimes. Yeah, Connecticut's not very big, so and we certainly work with buyers out of state. Like we'll deliver to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York. Not the city, but if it's within 60 miles, we'll go there.
Great.
Yeah, we actually updated our bylaws or our handbook this past year because we had a grower who was interested in joining who was right across the southern border of Maine. So we did make an exception for that since they're pretty close to our pickup and delivery zones. So yeah, we were open to it. And I mean, Maine is a very large state. I would say we cover most of like the bottom half of it. But yeah, we've been open to that possibility. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much to both of you for joining us. And like I said, I'll send the recording out to everyone who registered, and I can include your contact information as well. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone
Thank
has a
you.
good afternoon.
Everyone. And do
Bye.
you want us to stay on? Do you need us for anything?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, I think you can head off.
All right.
Have a great
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.